Addy Soldiers, coming to you at a slightly different angle this week. Last weekend, I went rollerblading with my girlfriend, and because I have no good sense of equilibrium, I fell really hard on my hip, and it both hurts to stand for long periods of time, but also sit for long periods of time in like cushy chairs like my couch. So I'm currently sitting on an ottoman in front of my bookshelves, and we'll see how this works out. Before we get started, full credit to Emma over at Emma Skies for this week's video idea, because she also just posted her sequels video, and I will link that down below because you want to get your eyeballs on her sexy data tracking spreadsheets. But I haven't bothered setting up a data tracker like hers, so my video is going to be much more chaotic. In case you're new here, hi, my name's Rachel, and I am infamously known for being atrocious at reading sequels. Because goddamn, do I love to read a book and then go, oh my god, this was so good, I'm totally gonna read the sequel when it comes out. And then when the sequel does come out, I'm like number one in line at the bookstore day that it publishes to get my grubby little book dragon claws on it. And then I bring it home and I post about it and I go, I'm so excited to continue with this series that I loved so much and gave me so many feelings. And then I love to put it on a shelf and then not touch it for like 3 years. Or in the case of some of these, maybe like multiple sets of 3 years. You think I'm joking, but we'll get into it. Oh, the shirt still smells like the taco place that I wore it to last night, which, great, free aromatherapy. And sometimes in practice, I do love a sequel. Like, sequels are great. They're a way to play around in the sandbox of the world, as it were, right? We're expanding on the world building. We get that sweet character development. And then eventually, if the series goes on long enough, we get that lovely catharsis and heartwarming ending that is, coming full circle and wrapping up a story. If someone who knows science could get on figuring out how to bottle that feeling, I will sell my signed first edition of Clockwork Angel and I will become an investor. To psychoanalyze myself, I suppose one of the reasons that I don't read sequels is because I don't want the series to end. I loved it so much, and knowing that this is the final book means that if I never read it, then it's like never truly over. Or it's because I read and buy and accumulate things at such a rapid pace that by the time a sequel comes out, it has just been squished down my priority list so much lower than everything else that's been piled on top of it. And so because of those two reasons, I have started so many series that I just never finished. I do think there's a difference between a series that I love that is still coming out versus a series that is like fully published that you could find on the shelves of like a Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble? What am I, American? I'm Canadian. I've been to a Barnes & Noble exactly one time, and it was when I visited New York, and it was the big one in Union Square, and it was magical. Anyways, I'm not a series completionist. Like, I am very comfortable reading a first book and then going, yeah, this was enough for me, and then just not picking up the rest of the series. And like, to quote Uncarly, nothing but love and light, but I feel like I can both metaphorically and literally close the chapter on this world and like move on with my life without any negative repercussions. Sometimes you can just tell how it's gonna end, like, yep, all right, they're gonna prevail, they're gonna take down that bad guy, and these people are probably gonna kiss about it. Have you guys noticed that you can always tell the next person going home on a reality TV show based on how much of their backstory they give in that episode? Like, it's gotten to a point where my girlfriend and I are watching like the Great British Bake Off, and it'll be like Carrie from Missouri, that's not in Britain, the Great American Baking Show, I don't know, Carrie from Missouri, we've seen her in like 2 episodes just like here and there, and then suddenly it's like, her family's farm is in danger and they've been farmers for 400 years on the same plot of land, and it's just like, oh yeah, she's going home. And not to say predictability is bad, but like, come on. Tell me you've never read a book where you're like, oh yeah, that character's definitely gonna die. Plus, there are so many of the books on my shelves that I didn't even realize were part of series until I watched Emma's video, which throws my whole reading schedule out of whack because now I have to go back and look and be like, do I actually want to continue on with this world thing soup, or do I like cut it off as just the first book? Because see, one of my New Year's resolutions from that video was to read more sequels. I challenged myself to read at least one sequel every month, and I'm realizing right now that I haven't read a sequel yet this month. It's fine, I can fix this. There's still a couple days left of the month. But last year, I only read 6 sequels, and considering that like 25% of my TBR pile is a sequel, That's not good. That's frankly embarrassing. Like, it feels like I am bringing shame upon my own legacy as a book blogger. Because even though I just maybe made it sound like it is not my intention to just go buy books willy nilly and just like pick up a sequel whenever it's available. I bought or requested or specifically kept these books because of my intention to read them. But you can have the best intentions in the world and not do anything about it. So at this point, I do need to put my money where my mouth is. In some cases, literally. I spent my hard-earned Canadian money dollars on some of these, and I don't want that purchase to go to waste. And also, like, why am I not reading a thing of something that I know I like already? Like, why am I not finishing a story? What's up with that? So I want to look at my bookshelves and see how many series I've started and not finished. I also want to go over my TBR pile of sequels, and I also want to go over some sequels that are coming out either this year or hopefully next year to finally complete some of my favorite series of all time. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in. Let's get into the sequel-y goodness. First things first, let us look at my shelves and let's see and try and count how many book series that I've started but have not finished. Don't look at the back of my head, okay? That's nobody's business. All right, let's see. That's ongoing 1, ongoing 2, ongoing 3. That's 8, 9. That's a sequel. 10. I know that has at least 3 of the series. That is going to have a sequel. 23, 24. Okay, well, I'm at the like 40 something mark and I'm only like one shelf over. You see, it's this shelf that's really tripping me up because we have Black Sun, which I know has 2 sequels. Then we have City of Brass, which has 2 or 3 sequels. Namebearer has 2. Final Strife is a series. Empire of Sand is a duology. Poppy War has 2 sequels. She Became the Sun has 2 sequels. Jade City has 2 sequels. Will we ever get the 3rd book from Patrick Rothfuss? My money's on no. Shadow of the Gods has 2 sequels as well. And then I know Rebecca Thorne, her 3rd companion book comes out this year. And then Travis Baldry's other companion book comes out this year, if you count those as series. Do we count companion novels as series? Because if that's the case, I have to recount. Her Sister has 2 sequels. The Becky Chambers series has like 4. I do have all of the core Cassandra Clare series, but I don't have a lot of her spin-offs. So yet again, if we're counting spin-offs, oh, I'm at like 70 something at this point. There's another 2. There's a sequel. That has a sequel. Those have 2 sequels that I just don't own. Maybe 2 sequels. Another one down there. I've lost count at this point. I've given up. And all of you are going to be like, Rachel, but Emma, she had everything tracked nicely and she gave us an exact number of how many series she started. Well, this isn't Emma's channel. Emma, I'm sorry. You're really cool. And we're mutuals, but like, I'd love to be better friends. So like, let me know if that's a thing that you also want. Okay, actually, hold on. Let me give you maybe a kind of a real number. Counting companion books and books with sequels that have not come out yet. 1, 2, 3, 12, 13, 14, 15, 30, 3, maybe 40, 41, 42, 43, 60, 75, 76, 77, 78, 90. No, 91, 92, 97. There are 97 books on this bookcase that are the first of a series that I never finished. Now, of course, once I actually read some of the sequels that I have on my TBR pile and I purchase some of the finale books this year, I will be able to decrease that number. But by how many? And at what cost? And actually, can I just rant for a second? Like, why does everything have to have a companion or a sequel or a prequel or a spin-off series these days? Like, why can't we just do a one and done? Why does everything have to have some kind of extra? And like, I get it for it's marketing. Oh, it's an easy buck, you know. Oh, you make a sequel about a side character and it's a guaranteed 20,000 sales or like whatever. But it's so annoying that because you're just breaking open the world in a way that we don't need. Like, it was already finished, you wrapped up the story, and then surprise, there's a sequel, and you're like, what are you picking at? You're just picking at threads, and then by that point, you're like ruining the integrity of the story because you're like making conflict out of nothing because it's stuff that we've already solved. Of course, this is only my opinion, and there are exceptions to that rule. For example, Samantha Shannon is writing, I think, at least a novella and then one more book in the Priory of the Orange Tree world that I believe is another prequel and then also a sequel. And like, Samantha Shannon, my queen, can do whatever the hell she wants. Actually, she's also a good counterexample of that as well, because I have the first 3, well, technically 5, but 3 of the Bone Season series, which is like I love that series. It's so weird. It's so good. And yet, she's writing seven. Samantha, that's too many. I love a duology. I love a trilogy. But after 3, you have to really make me love your characters if I'm going to stick around for more than 3. Maybe it's just because I'm old and jaded, but like I cannot handle series that do like 5 to 24 books anymore. Like when I was a teenager, I was like, oh, it's the like 5th in a series, and then there's also like 16 companion novels. Like, give it to me. That's perfect. I'll buy all of them. But now I'm like, what do you mean there's going to be a 3rd one? Oh my God. If it's not worth me refinancing my mortgage, I don't want it. Like I said earlier, I'm not a completionist. Like I do not care that I only have one of the series on my shelf because it's usually the first book that makes the most impact on me. So like I want to keep that one. And with companion novels on the rise, I also sometimes just don't engage with them if they're a character that I don't really care about. And like, don't get me wrong, I do love a companion novel. I love being able to see other characters and be like, oh, I remember you from your book. Like, that's so fun. What an Easter egg. But if I don't care about the character, I'm just not going to pick it up, especially if it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of the whole story. A series I'm thinking about is the Deal with the Demon series by Katie Robert, where I got the 2 that I wanted. And now I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be struck down by some holy being if I don't buy or collect the rest of them? No? Sick. So I'm just not going to. Now, some of the series that I have started but have not finished that I want to finish actively are, I'd love to finish the Greenbone saga by Fonda Lee. Like, Jade City was incredible, and yet at the same time, maybe this is just, okay, we're working things out in real time. Maybe I'm just not ready to be emotionally devastated to the degree that I was emotionally devastated in the first book, because I hear the rest of the series only gets better. I'd also love to finish the Bloodsworn series, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Like, this was so good, and I just haven't picked up the sequel, but I'd like to. The Curious Tides duology, I think the sequel is out, but then like Belladonna by Adeline Grace, I didn't even realize this had sequels, and apparently there's like 2. I think I'm good with capping the series here. This was a good like death personified, romantic, gothic, and then I'm like, and that was good, and I'm done. I'm kind of in the same boat for Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, just because I had a friend of mine say that the final book wasn't very good, and so that's another reason where I'm like, why am I going to continue the series if I've heard that the last book like didn't give catharsis and like wasn't a good wrap up? I'd rather just have the first one and be like, I love this first one. It's a really cool bone magic fantasy world. And that's it. Actually, same thing with A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Foz Meadows. I just realized it's so dark back here. Can you guys see this? This has a companion sequel, which is All Our Hidden Paths, I think. And it's just like, oh, they're having marital problems. And I'm like, I don't want them to have marital problems. I want to read a single book where they live happily ever after, and I don't have to think about bad relation stuff happening. But as it is the year 2025, there are a handful of sequels coming out this year that I'm so freaking excited for. Number 1 on my list is coming out at the end of March, and it's Faithbreaker by Hannah Kanner. This is 3rd and final of her Fallen Gods God Killer series. God Killer was one of my top 10 books of 2023, and then Sunbringer was one of my top 5 books of 2024. So I can only imagine that she is going to follow in her predecessor's footsteps, and this is going to become my favorite overall, highest rated series that I've ever read. And Sketty's on the cover of this one. I love this little jackalope, god of white lies. I cannot wait to see how his story wraps up. Amongst other things, right? Ladies with swords, political impacts, final resting places of gods. It's sick as hell. In May, we have A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the sequel to A Fate Inked in Blood and second of her Saga of the Unfated series. I'm an unapologetic Danielle L. Jensen stan. I absolutely love her romantasy writing. I think that she balances the romance and the relationship dynamics so well with like the politics of the world and the world building. And this was no different. I love this series. It's like Viking magic, and the main character is this like badass shield maiden who has the power of the gods and anime on her side. There is The Ending Fire by Sarah L. Arifi, which is 3rd of her Ending Fire trilogy. Now, we will hear about this series a little bit more later, but I have not read The Battle Drum, and yet I am so invested in the 3rd of this series, because the first one, sapphic Arabian African folklore fantasy novel about a series of trials and people who have different colors of blood. This actually did come out in 2024, and as you can see behind me, I really do not care about having a series like half in hardcover, half in softcover. I don't really care about if the covers match. For whatever reason, this series I am only down to own the soft cover UK cover, and my brain won't let me buy the hardcover with the person on the front. I need this no person soft cover. So I am waiting very patiently, like the saint that I am, for this to release in North America, and then I'm gonna snatch it, gonna yoink it. And in June, we have The Lure of Their Graves by Laura A. Samuelson, the second of the Cursed Crown duology and sequel to The Sins on Their Bones. Jewish folklore-inspired fantasy reimagining of 19th century Eastern Europe, and it's all about toxic relationships and demon boys. I'm ready to have my heart ripped out and my bones exposed, but maybe not do cocaine. Then at the end of July, we have Red Tempest Brother by H.M. Long, which is third in her Winter Sea trilogy. Icy winter fantasy full of swashbuckling pirate escapades and weather witches and creatures from the other world and magic powers. She's so good at writing complicated relationships, particularly the complicated relationship between two brothers. And also, truly, I just want Mary and Sam to be able to get it on. And then there are two books that are going to be coming out at some point. Undetermined. I feel like if you know me, you probably already know what I'm going to say. Alecto the Ninth. Where is she? Love Gideon the Ninth. Love Hera the Ninth. Love Nona the Ninth. Alecto, where you at, girl? I have some empathy. Of course, Tamsin is a person. Maybe she's going through something. Maybe there's like an issue between her and the publisher. Maybe some timelines are getting swapped around. Maybe it's something completely out of her control. And yet, you know, I need, like, this is the closest to being on drugs, okay, that I will ever be, because I'm like, I need it. I need the fix. I need to know what the fuck is going on with the series. And then the other, this might be one of the only series that I'm okay with companion novels coming out for after the first one was published as a standalone, and that is Victorious by V.E. Schwab. Vicious was one of the first books that I ever fell in love with, and it's just about these two awful college kids who kill each other and then bring each other back from the dead in hopes of getting superpowers, and then they do. They wrote that as a full standalone, and then years later it came out with a sequel, a companion sequel, that introduced some new characters. I don't think it detracted from the first one, but I don't know how much it added. And now the third one's coming out. So I have no idea what they're gonna do with these characters now, especially since they also did a graphic novel series based on the characters from Vicious. If I was part of this universe, I would want the superpower to know when books are gonna be released. I mean, I feel dead inside sometimes. Does that count? And to wrap up this video, I want to go over some sequels that I currently own on my physical TBR pile and just, I don't know, admit my crimes. Why don't we just start with, I think, the oldest ones on this TBR pile. Okay, so, the year was 2018. Oh my god, that was 7 years ago. So I have both the second and the third of the Furyborn trilogy by Claire Legrand. That is Kingsbane and Lightbringer. I know people that would have chewed off their leg to be able to get their hands on one of these softcover advanced copies, and yet they've just been sitting collecting dust in my room through 2 moves and 5 jobs. Just girly things. I also have the sequels Bladebreaker and Fatebreaker to Victoria Aveyard's Realmbreaker series. At this point, having it all on my shelf is going to be a point of pride, so maybe I'll move these a little bit higher on the TBR pile. Another 2 of a kind, I have both The Mask Falling and The Dark Mirror by Samantha Shannon, which are the 4th and 5th of the Bone Season series. I would just like to bring your attention to the fact that I have a first edition signed copy of The Mask Falling, and then I also have an advanced copy of The Dark Mirror. Like, maybe I am just a little better than all of you, and yet at the same time I have not read them. Was that too far? I'm sorry. I am actually not going to read these. My plan is I'm going to just wait until all 7 of them are out, and then I'll read all of them. Because she's also re-releasing the first 3 as like author preferred versions. She's like rewriting them and re-editing them. So I'm gonna have to get those ones all over again. So I'm gonna wait until the whole thing is out, and then I will binge the whole thing. Or so I tell myself. I also feel incredibly guilty over the fact that I still have not read The Echoed Realm by A.J. Frana, which is the sequel to The Hollow Gods, because she's my friend, and I also read an advanced copy of her new book, which is the companion series to this series, and yet just this one, just alone, forgotten. Pretty urban fantasy, paranormal, sometimes werewolves, dreamwalkers, Slavic folklore, town in northern British Columbia, which is where I live, so that's fun. Top priority. We're moving this fully over here. Ah, see, I told you we come back to Sarah El Arifi. I have the Battle Drum. This one I'm also going to put on my like super uber priority list. A finale to a series that I'm gonna goddamn finish this year, whether I like it or not. And that is the Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. I really like the Atlas Paradox. What the fuck was that ending? I gotta know, but apparently I don't gotta know enough because I still haven't read the finale book. Another sequel I have is second of the Nightshade Crown series, and that is The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten. This is the sequel to The Foxglove King. French-inspired necromancy, fantasy, gothic, with like a hot priest and some guy who I think is a sun god incarnate. Will they become a trio? I certainly hope so. But wait, there's more. Oh my god, I saw my order slip in here. What year was this? 2021 Rachel ordered a copy of We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faisal and then never read it. At this point, I remember net zero about We Hunt the Flames. So either I'm gonna have to look up some kind of synopsis, summary, spoiler thing, or I'm just gonna have to reread it, and I don't know if I'm motivated enough to do that at the moment, but maybe let me know if I should. This video is just me peer pressuring you into peer pressuring me to do things. We're gonna go into another duology. I got sent both Godly Heathens and Merciless Saviors by Wednesday Books, which are by H.E. Edgman. Non-binary teen finds out that they're a god incarnate, but like from another world. One of my resolutions this year was to read a full duology, so I think this is gonna be it. Probably read these back to back at some point. And then I also kind of feel bad about these because I was part of the blog tours for both Chasm, let's get that cover in there, ooh, and Valley by Stacey McEwen. Red Ledge, loved it enough to sign up for the book tours and like all the promo for the sequels, and then just like didn't read the sequels. This is also a series that I'm determined to finish in 2025, so we're also going to put this on the higher priority list. I realize I'm doing this more than I thought I was, but again, a series of books that I have the first two that I'm going to wait until I have all four, or at least the first three, and that is I have not read Legendborn by Tracy Deonn yet. I know, straight to jail. I thought it was just a duology, and then surprise it was a trilogy, and then surprise it was a whatever four is, quadruplets, I have an English degree. Quartet, that's the word. Please no one tell Book Baddie Brie, okay? She's gonna come for me. And then last, but certainly not least, I realize that I am truly committing treason as we speak over the fact that I have not yet read Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. Hey, I was as emotionally devastated as the rest of you after, Divine Rivals, there we go. Look, man, I've been filming for a couple of hours and I didn't have a second coffee, okay? Words are hard. I just haven't been ready to have my heart broken yet. But I do believe this is the year that we finally finish this duology and I can proudly display it on my shelf. And that's that on that. So there are all my thoughts on sequels and all of my sequel shame. Being somebody in the book blogger space, and just as somebody who reads as much as I do and like has a bunch of bookish friends who are constantly recommending things to one another, like I think it's both good and bad that I don't continue series, because for the most part I'm trying new things all the time. But I also kind of want to be able to return to things and like not feel bad about it because I'm not talking about like the latest thing that's come out. And then also, like, I feel like I'm neglecting, you know, my past self who bought these things, and I'm neglecting the things that I have spent money on. So as what was once resolved, I wish to read more sequels this year, and I'm going to force myself to do that. And also, please leave down below some sequels that you need to get to or that you're really excited for coming out this year. And also, please do peer pressure me into reading the things that I said I was going to read. Every like 6 months or so, whenever I film a video about doing like a TBR declutter, I like the same books have shown up for multiple years. And so it's just like, I gotta get rid of them or I gotta read them. And like, now's the time, baby. Oh, also, can you see my new tattoo? That's like fully healed that I can show off. My hellebores, they're so lovely. I love them so much. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!